So with that, I'm going to pass it to our hosts today, Kate and Trisha.
Thank you so much, Evelyn. Really appreciate it. And thank you all for being here today. Just for a quick intro of who you're chatting with on the phone. So my name's Kate Bernier. I'm one of the co-founders of Airbo. I've been in the benefits engagement space for, over a decade now. And a lot of that time has been working with groups on open enrollment. How do we engage employees during this time period? How do we make it easier for you specifically so you're not on the last day chasing a ton of people around trying to get them to enroll or waive benefits? And then I'm also joined by Trisha Remblake, who I'm going to pass over for an intro as well.
Thanks, Kate. Hi, everyone. I'm Trisha Remblake, and I'm a customer success manager here over at Airbo. I've been in the benefits space for several years now. Coming in my third year with Airbo this summer, which is crazy to say. So I work mainly with all of our customers day to day, those that are current Airbo customers, and then I also help with the implementation process. I've helped customers and running over hundreds of virtual benefits fairs through my almost 3 years here. So just super pumped to be here with Kate and lead you all through our webinar.
Yeah. And for those that are brokers in the call, Trisha came from the broker world before Airbo. So she has a lot of experience on that side too.
Yep.
Cool. Well, before we jump into the agenda, I just want to give a quick overview of Airbo for those that don't know us super well. So Airbo is a benefits engagement platform. And so essentially, this is how we feel the employees experience benefits today, and quite frankly, the HR ecosystem. There's a lot of places that employees need to go. There's a lot of benefits that are intertwined. So the high deductible health plan with the health savings account, or if you have programs like, let's say, Garner, and you need employees to use that prior to getting care. And then the payroll system might be different than the HRIS system, or all of these different benefits have different apps or logins that employees need to access to go in and see what they have and take advantage. And so just in general, the benefits ecosystem is a very complex place on top of benefits being an already complex topic for people that are not, in the benefits space to understand. And so Airbo, so we're a benefits engagement platform. Our whole goal is to help an employee navigate the benefits ecosystem. So a really nice way to think of Airbo is we're almost like the wrapper around your whole ecosystem. So your benefit programs, wellness programs, retirement programs, and then also your tech stack. And we're the starting point for where employees will go, and then they will be taught about their benefits and then directed to where they need to go to either enroll or log in or take action on something. And so we do this throughout the year, but today we're going to be focusing mainly on this open enrollment time period of how do we make open enrollment really easy, engaging, drive participation, and then also make it a really easy time of year for you all. And so just one thing, as I'm going along, please ask questions. We're going to be pausing, answering questions as we're going through different pieces of content throughout this presentation. And then towards the end, we're going to show you a live demo of our virtual benefits fair. Oh, I skipped a slide before I jump into Airbo or into the
You got excited.
The open enrollment. Exactly, I got excited. So just to give you a little background on Airbo, so we have over 500 companies that we work with today across every major industry. So professional services, mining, manufacturing, healthcare, populations that are hybrid or have blue collar and white collar, kind of you name it, we work with it. And we really have companies that range from 100 employees all the way up to about 200,000 employees. So many, many different groups that we work with. So today's agenda, so what we're going to cover, so we're going to touch on the open enrollment strategy. So we're just going to chat through the open enrollment communication and education strategy, and some high level things that we, recommend you look at. And then we're going to discuss optimizing your virtual benefits fair. And then we will do a Q&A and a raffle at the end, as Evelyn had mentioned. Before we get started, Trisha, I'm going to pass it over to you for a quick poll.
Thanks, Kate. As Kate mentioned, before we get started, we just want to know, going into the holiday weekend, how you all are planning on spending it. If you want to just take a few minutes to answer. Kate, how are you planning on spending your Memorial Day?
Honestly, with family, friends. I'm so excited. I cannot believe it's like officially summer this weekend.
I
I don't know
know.
where the year went.
I still feel like it's February.
Yeah, same. It's February, but nice and green and lush outside.
Seriously, I'm excited.
Awesome. It looks like a lot of people are spending time with family and friends. We have, oh, I like those. A lot are, a good number are taking a big nap, which, you know, especially as we head into open enrollment season, you should get in front of it.
That's exactly what I'm going to be doing, the taking a big,
Yeah.
maybe 3.
I love it. Well, our top one was time with family and friends. Love it. That's, you know, that is exactly how you spend Memorial Day. Cool. So Trisha, I'm gonna let you get us started here today.
Thanks, Kate. So today, as Kate mentioned with the agenda, we're going to go through an open enrollment strategy with you all, reviewing communication infrastructure, engaging maybe hard to reach populations, your employees, sharing with spouses and domestic partners, because Airbo does have a few capabilities there. And then also increasing participation, talking through that, OE completion, and then making sure employees understand any benefit changes going into the open enrollment. So first up, we want to, most importantly, review communication infrastructure. Kate, do you want to start there with where to start?
Yeah. So the communication infrastructure is, you know, in our opinion, something that's really important to look at, especially as you're heading into a time period like open enrollment. And so when we think of communication infrastructures, we're thinking about all of the different ways that you can reach employees. So some questions that you might want to start asking yourself even right now are, what channels are you currently reaching your employees? Are you using digital displays? Are you sending emails out? Do you have contact information for all of your employees? And if you don't, how are you currently getting information to them? Is it through managers? You know, what languages do your employees speak? Do you have employees that are English as a second language, where, especially during a time like open enrollment, it's really important to get them information in their preferred language? And then also, you know, we're going to make sure we touch on this a little bit later, but a lot of times we see spouses make the benefit decisions, and like, can you reach them currently? And so one thing that we find, and this is actually like a really easy exercise that you could do, is you could just take out a notebook and write communication infrastructure on the top, and then just start thinking through what channels you're currently reaching employees on. How are you, like, do you have contact information for everybody? Yes, no. What languages do you currently have in your population? I mean, I personally am sometimes surprised at the number of companies I talk to where they don't know all of the languages that are spoken of their employees. And, you know, it's really important to know like how you reach employees, even outside of the open enrollment time period, because you're always going to have to get into contact with them. And so, first I would recommend taking out a piece of paper and just writing some of these things down. So what is your communication infrastructure? How are you currently reaching employees? And then from there, you actually might be able to see how you can make some changes. So like leading up to open enrollment, you could work with your managers during a shift, during their daily shifts, to have them collect contact information for employees that you don't have contact information for. You could reach out to the different sites and ask them, do we have employees that are English as a second language? And if yes, what are these languages? And so really, like, just, you know, in really quick raw format, just write out your different communications, how you're reaching employees, and then where, you know, you'll probably be able to start to see some of the gaps. Trisha, is there anything on your side, like when we're essentially like launching a campaign, that we like to ask or get information on, just in terms of the communication infrastructure?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we definitely recommend to reach out to employees before a virtual benefit fair launches, to go into your systems, making sure that employee contact information is up to date, their emails, phone numbers, because our virtual benefit fairs can launch in one of 2 ways or both ways. And as we are mentioning here, we recommend a multi-approach to communicating during open enrollment. We can launch text, email, you can send out QR codes, flyers. And promotional materials can be provided from the Airbo team. So flyers, we can provide those in different languages as well. Postcards, mailers, getting those out to employees.
Yeah, so exactly. I think like, you know, what Trisha said is once you know your communication infrastructure, you don't have to take a one kind of tier approach. You don't only have to send text. You don't only have to do posters. You don't only have to do emails. Depending on your different types of populations, which we're going to get to this in a couple minutes, there's probably many different channels that you should use to communicate with employees, whether that's using Airbo or not using Airbo, like something that you want to just pay attention to how you can reach your different populations. We have a couple questions here that I just want to mention because it does relate to the communication infrastructure.
Yeah,
So
I was just looking at those too. They're good questions.
Yeah. So actually, Trisha, like, are you seeing a decline on physical communications and an increase in electronic communications, just out of curiosity in your past few years?
You know, I would say it's pretty much stayed the same in the past few years running virtual benefits fairs, because those that are used to receiving a physical form, that way that's for sure getting out to the employees. But I would say, again, we are seeing more groups doing a multi-approach. Instead of just sending a flyer or just a postcard that may have been missed from the employee, they may have thrown it out by accident. So that way they're shooting it out via email, via Slack Teams, getting it out in that multi-approach there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like a lot of times we provide flyers and QR codes to promote what we do on the open enrollment side. So, you know, I think there's definitely still very much a need for physical communications. But being able to do both physical and electronic is going to help get people paying attention to open enrollment.
Exactly.
We're going to touch on a couple of these as we go on, but I will say that we can create QR codes for our for getting employees into Airbo, so we'll make sure we touch on that. And yeah, we'll touch on a couple of these questions because we're going to be covering them as we go through. And so one thing just in terms of text messaging, so a lot of groups are very hesitant to text employees. I will just say, so I want to touch on this briefly. We are finding that more and more groups are using text messages each year. So that is like definitely a theme that we're seeing happen. There is, you know, data that was recently released by the International Journal of Workplace Health Management that said that texting employees can increase, you know, program participation up to 40%. Kind of think about how you're using your phone. You know, you get a notification, everyone wants to read that. They want to get it off their phone. Computer usage is very, very different. And so I think like when you think about texting, it's definitely a channel worth thinking about. You know, if you're going to text employees, there's some things that we do tend to see that work well. We have some groups that will upload like in a user list, send a text message out, and then immediately send a message that says, if you do not want to receive this, just reply stop and opt out, and then they can opt out. So you always want to give employees ways to opt out, or you can do things like an opt-in campaign. So sometimes like programs like your HRIS, so like UKG will have fields that you can enter where an employee, when they're in UKG, they can say, do you want to opt into like text message benefit communications? And they just click yes. And then you can then use, you've received their consent, so you can then use that phone number for contact information. So just a few things to think about as you're thinking about your communication infrastructure and text messaging. We have, you know, many groups that text employees, so we're always happy to work with you on like some of the texting best practices. And so kind of like main piece there is just start to think about your communication infrastructure and what that looks like. And then, so kind of the next piece that we really like to think about is once we've got that communication infrastructure is how do we reach our different populations and what are our different populations? The two go very, very hand in hand. And so Trisha, can you talk a little bit about how we think about some of these different populations and how we use, like we want to think about using different, again, forms of communication to touch them?
Yeah, of course. So Airbo works with a variety of different industries and customers from manufacturing, healthcare, hospitality. And with those employees, they may not be sitting at a desk, right? They may not be at a computer. They may have access more to a phone. So for some of these examples, we've had customers similar. They were in an implementation call and they're like, I cannot reach my employees. What do you recommend that we do? And we're like, okay, let's get in front of them. So one thing that we like to recommend is reaching out to the subset HR managers, letting them know to communicate with those employees that they work with. Hey, we have a virtual benefit fair. Posting the QR code, because every virtual benefits fair has its own unique QR code and public link for the employee. As they're in the facility, they're going through the building. You can post out those QR codes, put them on TV screens. Employees can just scan and go through the virtual benefit fair, create an account, save their progress as they go. That's the great part about Airbo. It doesn't need to be completed all in one seating. They can go ahead, complete a few tiles, go back to a few things from work, and then go back to the fair anytime. So with these, the QR code approach, getting out postcards ahead of time, that is something that Airbo can assist with, getting those messagings out there. Kate, anything that I may be missing? I know the big part, the QR codes, and then the text messaging, of course, gathering employee information ahead of time. Maybe if you don't have company emails or phone numbers, that can be where we can utilize HR managers to collect employee data, or their emails, their phone numbers ahead of time. We can gather that information, get it into your virtual benefit fair so that we can launch it to their preferred contact information.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say, like, just add on a teeny bit that specifically these 4 populations, they are historically very hard to reach, because oftentimes they are either like on the road, they're with clients, or they're working first, second, or third shift when HR and benefit teams aren't on site, or they're not logging into a work or a company email address often. Even if they have them, there's some cases where, especially specifically manufacturing populations and some hospitality staff, just don't even access that email at all. And so thinking through, again, back to that communication infrastructure, how are your groups getting information today? What is their day-to-day look like? Kind of putting yourself in their shoes and kind of seeing how they might get information, and then what would make it the easiest for them to get information, I think is really important. Yeah. So so I'd say, for example, I'm going to hold on sales for 1 second, but like manufacturing, hospitality, and healthcare tend to be fairly similar in that, like Trisha said, if you can do things that are outside kind of the traditional email format, that tends to work really well for these groups, because we're reaching them, when they're on their break, or when they're, coming in for their second shift, they might get a text message, or their manager might hand them a flyer that has a QR code on it, or a flyer that's just about open enrollment in general. And so it really needs to be some different channels to get in front of these harder to reach populations. Sales specifically, so this is also a very unique population, because oftentimes these are people that are on the road. They're client facing, they have computers, they have email, but they're pretty much on the go, and they're just fast moving. And so I will say specifically, texting with sales has tended to, because we've seen it work incredibly well, but also sometimes just changing some of the messaging up for them works really well, and trying to just, in any messaging you're saying, say like sales team directly. And that does seem to get attention with that group specifically.
A great idea.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add here, Trisha, just on the hard to reach populations?
No, I think we covered it all.
Perfect. Okay, so we've chatted through communication infrastructure, like how to think about that. We've chatted through starting to think about the different populations, but there is another population that's really important for benefits, which is spouses. So like, Airbo has, we have some tools for this, but just in general, can you talk through like how to make sure they're getting information as well?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure all of us in our HR benefits career has run into employees where they're like, I know nothing but my benefits because my spouse or domestic partner handles all of it. So the great thing with Airbo is we do have features like Kate said, I'll dive into that in a second, but we do recommend with some of these promotional materials to maybe target it towards the spouse, domestic partner on that postcard saying like, hey, are you a spouse? Please scan the QR code as well, create an account so that they are added to those communications and receive the notifications that come through. Within Airbo, we have a feature where you can add what we call the tiles on those, where it's that bite-sized piece of information. And we can add in hey, do you want to invite your spouse? Do you want to invite your domestic partner? And it's right in the beginning of the event. So then that way the employee can just click on, yes, they want to invite their spouse to the fair. They get a message that they can send right over to the employee or their spouse's email right away. The spouse can get an invite. They click on the link to get started, and then they can go through the experience to review the benefits with their spouse. So that would be a highly recommended option there, just for those employees that need some additional help, and also recommending for employees to go through it with their spouse at the same time.
And we'll show you a live demo of our specific spouse feature. But again, if like you're not using Airbo or you just want to think through how to get information to spouses, just think about what you're sending home. Even if you're giving employees flyers, you could put notes on there that says like, please share this with your spouse. So different things where it prompts the employee to actually share that information with their spouse or domestic partner.
Exactly. So we have another poll. So this one relating a little bit more to open enrollment participation. Right now, are you happy with your OE participation rates that you're getting with your current tools?
I feel like we need to turn the music on when we do polls.
I know.
That should be a feature that Zoom webinars turns on.
Right. A little music icon to just turn on and off.
Yeah, exactly.
It looks pretty even so far.
Yeah, we're pretty close. So it looks like yes is about 49%. So most on the call are happy with participation. Oh, we're down to 48%. And then no is about 52%.
It's like a race.
We have still a few coming in here. Awesome. So I think we're going to land like fairly close to even. It looks like though there's a little bit of a majority that are not happy with OE participation rates. So 51% of those on the call that answered are not happy with their open enrollment participation rates you're getting with their current tools. So again, like as you start to think back through your like kind of these few things that we're talking about, like how are employees accessing your current tools? How are they getting that information to be navigated over to those current tools? I think those are the questions to ask once you've made your benefit decisions and your changes. Like how, and actually, honestly, I would recommend probably doing it in parallel, figuring out how you're going to get the information out to them while you're making your benefit changes. So it's not like a scramble right at the end there. But we're going to talk through how we can increase participation. And so kind of the next part we're going to focus on is increasing participation in open enrollment completion. So essentially, the way we like to think through this is, you know, one, we want to make it really easy for the employee. We want them to be able to learn the information, go through enrollment, and be done with it. But two, we want to make it much easier for you all as well, while still getting open enrollment participation rates. So on like the last 2 days, you know, you're not chasing employees around. I don't know about you, but I used to work in HR, and I remember physically finding employees at the hotel site that I was at, trying to get them to enroll or waive coverage because they didn't listen, they didn't, you know, do any of the communications.
I'm just picturing you with like a flyer and a clipboard.
1,000%, just like a slightly younger version of me, like running around trying to find employees or asking managers like, when is this person going to be in? So that was definitely my past. But essentially kind of our, you know, a big part of what we think here is if you don't promote it, they're not going to participate. So like a lot of times we hear from groups that say like, hey, we just put like some stuff on our intranet and we just, sent some flyers out and, we shared the information, but people didn't come in and do it. And so I think it's important to think about those tools, like posting something on the intranet is only as good as getting an employee over to the intranet. Or getting something like putting a flyer out is only as good as getting an employee to actually look at that flyer, right? And so if you don't actually push and market those, pieces of communication, the open enrollment period, you're not going to get participation. And so I think it's important to kind of think of it from a marketing perspective. And Trisha, I think we recently had a group that went through open enrollment. They were in the healthcare space, and in just about 2 weeks, they got 97% of their population that went through and waived or enrolled coverage, which I think is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, no, we definitely helped with driving that participation with getting as much promotional materials out there as possible. So yeah, if you don't promote it, they won't come. So, or however that saying goes.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, so I think oh, you know what, I was going to jump into the benefits fair. I got a little bit excited. I think the last thing we just want to briefly chat through is, especially for those that are making big benefit changes, obviously there's years where there's a passive enrollment where benefits are just going to roll over. And some of this stuff is, less, I don't want to say less important, because I think it's very important for employees to go through and review benefits, but it is less critical to get the information in front of them if they don't have to go in and re-enroll, if they might lose coverage if they don't. And so, like, Trisha, talk to me a little bit about just how we've seen groups make sure that employees understand big benefit changes, sometimes prior to open enrollment, and then also during the open enrollment time period.
Yeah, so there's been a few different options there that we've seen customers do across the board. One thing that some customers do that just have the virtual benefit fair, they'll pop in an informational tile of what changes there are and what to expect. And that can be a very high level, hey, dental, we are moving over to Delta Dental for 2024. Our vision rates are staying the same. That is what we see a lot of groups do to let employees know what's new, what's changing. Within that, it will communicate if it's a passive or an active enrollment. So we do see that participation can be higher for those that are active enrollments, because if employees do not enroll, as we all probably know, they will not have coverage. So getting those promotional materials out is huge so that employees know that elections must need to be made. With that, we see some groups launch a separate pre-open enrollment campaign if they are making some big changes. For example, introducing a high deductible health plan with an HSA. There's a lot of educational pieces to that, so employees know if maybe their PPO is going away, they only have one different medical plan option, but they don't know much about it. That experience can be used to really give more detail before the employee goes in to make an educational choice that makes most sense for them and their families. So that is some groups do.
Do we launch, like, sometimes those campaigns we launch like at least a month, if not more, ahead of open enrollment to education?
Yeah, separate pre-open enrollment, those that are maybe making the bigger changes, we would see that one about a month prior, not too far on in advance so that they don't forget. We would say within that month time frame.
Okay.
And then we also too, for the virtual benefits fair, if just moving with that experience and you just want to educate what changes are going on, we like to recommend maybe your open enrollment is June 1st through June 16th. You can always launch the virtual benefit fair a few days prior to open enrollment starting, so employees get that highlight of what benefits are available before the OE starts.
Yeah, and I think I agree with all of that. And then just making sure that the change content is always up front for an employee as like one of the main things that they see once they start, whether it's reading like a newsletter that you send out about open enrollment, a postcard, or like going through a tool like our virtual benefits fair. So just always keeping that information like very, very kind of front and center.
We also see some groups too that will make a quick video blurb, maybe from their open enrollment session. That's only a few minutes. Because within the Airbo experience, you can add in videos either from your vendors or something from your brokers, or on the HR side, if you want to just do a quick introduction, hey, these are our changes. If you want to talk through it a little bit more in detail, that can be appreciated by employees too, from some groups.
Awesome. Well, so now that we've chatted through like some of the things that we like to think about prior to open enrollment. So again, communication infrastructure, how are you reaching employees? Your different populations, like, are they in the more hard to reach space? What can we do that's unique to get in front of them? How do we get in front of spouses? And then also, how do we make sure that the change content is, very front and center for employees? These are the things that we recommend you thinking about prior to, releasing open enrollment to employees or making open enrollment live. And so, we do have a tool that helps with all of these different things, the Airbo Virtual Benefits Fair. And so this is an experience. So I'm going to pop into a live demo in one moment that guides an employee through open enrollment in a really simple way, and it makes sure that they complete their deadlines on time. So we do a lot of reminders and notifications to help make sure that an employee goes in and participates, while also taking a lot of work off of your plate. And so I'm going to move the screen share over really briefly, and then we will go into a demo. For those that I did see one question as I quickly move on that says, do we see more passive and active enrollments? I would say it's probably a 50-50 split, right, Trisha? Like, it totally depends on the group. But we have ways to communicate both. And I think if you have an active enrollment, like definitely doing pre-enrollment education, like, hey, open enrollment is coming. If you don't enroll, you're going to lose coverage. Those things is really important. I think if you have a passive one, the parts of those that are really important is going to be like, hey, if you want to make changes, you need to go in, but also like the FSA, like most people have to re-enroll in FSA. So again, making sure that those communications are really front and center. So an employee doesn't say in their next plan year, oh, where is my FSA? I don't know why I don't have it.
Yeah.
Okay, so Trisha, just making sure, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm actually going to start you in the experience of if an employee receives an email from Airbo. So as we've sort of mentioned throughout, an employee can either receive an email from Airbo, a text message from Airbo, or we can provide QR codes or links that can be shared out to get employees to access Airbo. If we're doing the email and text route, we would take in an eligibility file that has that contact information. So essentially, this is what an email might look like. It would be completely branded for your organization. An employee will just click on the first tile, and Airbo is going to automatically open their virtual benefits fair for them to interact with. And so Airbo's campaign, so our virtual benefits fair campaign, is made up of what we call tiles. And so tiles have 3 key components. So they're always going to have an image, a video, or I guess, GIF or GIF. I don't know the correct way to say it. At the top. I say GIF too, but apparently it's GIF. I don't know. It's then got the information in the middle. And so this is character limited to 700 characters because we want each tile to be bite-sized and easy for someone to read and interact with. And so I'm going to show you a few examples of why tiles are set up the way they are, because when you're going through complex benefits information, you want to make sure that it's really easy for an employee to understand and they can just see this piece of information. And then we've got the interaction at the bottom. And so this is what guides an employee through the experience. And so as you'll see, I answered my tile, my progress bar started to fill up, and I earned points. Just a side note, most employees will start at 0 points. I've done this campaign a few times, so I'm starting a little ways in. But one of the things that we also at Airbo think is really important is, open enrollment communications need to stand out among other communications. And so one of the things that we do is prizes for participation. And Trisha, how do we typically get prizes? I think this is fun.
Yeah, we like to recommend reaching out to your vendors for prize donations. Most of the time during open enrollment season, we see groups majority of the time willing to give a donation as we are promoting their benefits and enrolling or encouraging employees to enroll. So we can see a variety of offerings from gift cards, sunglasses, toothbrushes, and then also if you have any like company swag, things outside of monetary prizes, we've seen groups offer up PTO days if that aligns within your policies, which is a kind of a cool perk. So there's a lot of ways to get creative there.
Cool. And if you have like rewards and recognition programs or like wellness programs, we can always work with you to link those together too. So now going into language translation. So one of the things that we find very important, especially with open enrollment, is being able to get communications in front of an employee in their preferred language. And so we have set up Airbo to automatically translate in up to 42 different languages. So an employee can self-select into what language they would like to read Airbo, and then all of their content is going to now be, in this case, in Spanish. I think one thing that's really cool is when an employee first lands on Airbo, so when they either click on that email, they click on the text, or they scan the QR code, if their browser that they're using Airbo on already has, let's say, Spanish set up, Airbo is going to automatically detect that and then suggest that they change the language. So they don't always have to click the button like I just did, although we'll always do education.
Exactly.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I don't know if we mentioned this, but for promotional flyers, for virtual benefit fairs, we can provide those in different languages as well. So you don't know which language you all prefer, and then we can send those over.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Trisha, because one of the things that's really important, whether you're using Airbo for open enrollment or for year-round communications, whatever campaign it is, an employee needs to know, in some cases, before they get here, that they can translate, that it can be translated. And so we'll always do pre-communications, what we call pre-launch communications. And if you have populations that are English as a second language, we'll always include that. So yes, thank you for mentioning, Trisha. The other thing is, and as we've talked about with spouses, employees can invite their spouses directly into Airbo, as Trisha was mentioning. So, again, very important that this population receives benefit communications, because a lot of times they're the one that's shepherding that through the family. And so here we've set it up to be a simple tile where the employee that's in the experience would just click, yes, I want to invite my spouse. They would type the spouse's email in, and then they would click send. And now that spouse is going to receive an invite into this campaign that we're going through. This is really nice because you will also have collected the spouse's contact information. And so you can use it for future communications if you ever like.
Quickly popping in here, Kate, just because there was a question specifically around this. So is there an additional cost to include spouses?
So it depends, like if you have a spouse's contact information and you're loading them in, yes, like that would be included in your PEPY cost. If it's hard to gauge how many spouses are going to come in during open enrollment. So we typically don't charge them if they're using this invite feature. But if you constantly educate them and communicate with them throughout the year, when you're at your renewal, we might have like a slight increase in your renewal price based on your number of eligible users. Good question. And then so once we get an employee through what we call the welcome tiles, so the first, like the spouse, the language tile, and just the prize tile, we're then going to start diving into your benefits information. And so we're always going to do, like, again, our education up front that open enrollment has started. We'll give the dates and deadlines. And then we're going to ask questions to prove comprehension. So here we want to make sure an employee knows piece of information. So they have to click the correct answer to move on. And then they're just going to keep being taken through the virtual benefits fair. So each tile is going to break down one key concept. So I'm going to have to click the correct answer again here to move on. I think I saw this question actually. So a lot of times what we do, whether it's in our pre-campaign or our virtual benefits fair campaign, is we will do promotion of virtual and in-person meetings. So like whether that's a vendor that's holding a meeting, or it's like the HR benefits team or broker partners that are on site, we are always going to promote those meetings. And then we can even do RSVPs where an employee can say, yes, I'm going to attend, or please send me a reminder, because our tool has a way to capture who this contact information is. And then we can send reminders to the person on the day of these meetings to make sure that they attend that session. And so every time an employee answers a tile, they're going to earn, the system is going to basically collect who answered it and how they answered it. And so now we'll have a record and we can do future communications to them. That's one I love sending the webinar reminders. I think I was looking at some slides yesterday, and we had a group that had a 400% increase in webinar participation just from doing a tile. Than what they would get without, doing tiles. So I think they'd probably, I don't know, maybe that's 1 to 40.
Yeah.
Yeah. But hey, that's quite a difference.
That's amazing.
And then if you're doing changes, we're always going to promote changes here. So whatever your changes would be, we would pop that in. And then, we're really going to start diving into the benefits information. So we'll promote your benefit guide, whether that's, a guide that you have, it's a link that we're sending employees to. If you don't have guides, we'll pop your SBCs and different flyers on. So whatever you might have for your group, we'll pop that in. We can ask if employees are downloading. And then we're going to start going through the benefits information. So each tile is going to be about your different benefits. I'm not going to make you go through all 28 with me on the call, but I'll just show you a few of them here. But if I go back to this main homepage, I'll just scroll quickly through and show you that each tile is going to be almost like a live booth at a live event. So really we're touching on all of the different benefits. And then towards the end of the experience, we are going to do some reminders. So again, do you want to talk with vendors? So an employee is going to land here. If we want to do, oftentimes we'll recommend a checklist depending on your benefits and your changes. And so we'll probably for a few times throughout this experience, do some stuff with FSAs that you must re-elect. If you have working spouse contributions, anything along those lines, we'll make sure to layer in so an employee knows the actions they need to take. And then lastly, we will drive them over to their open enrollment site. And so again, here is where if we know that an employee has it's an active enrollment versus a passive enrollment, we're going to do additional education. We'll drive them over to Navigator. They would just click and be brought directly to Navigator to log in, whatever your setup is. Mm-hmm. We can attach benefit guides. We can do one-on-one enrollment sessions. There's a lot of things that we can do on tiles to make sure that an employee is very supported throughout the open enrollment experience.
Yeah, we've also seen some groups too that maybe don't have an employee or a election platform the employee navigator. So we see groups attach enrollment forms to specific tiles. So for example, the medical tile will have the medical enrollment form, and then on the enrollment instruction tile here that Kate is showing, it will give the instructions who to email to or where to send them. We see groups do that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and so we'll just provide the instructions. I would say a fair, probably 10 to 20% of our groups don't have an enrollment platform. So they will do paper enrollment and directions for them. Thank you for calling that out, Trisha.
Yeah.
The other thing that we provide on this, on Airbo or on a tile is the ability for employees to ask questions directly on a tile. And so if an employee has a question, they would simply type their question in here. Let's see. How do I update my, let's see. What would be a question I might have? How do I reset my password? We obviously we want to do some education for employee before that, but I'll just show you what this looks like.
It happens a lot.
Yeah, I'll click submit. Oh, I already submitted a question, so it's not going to allow me to again. But so basically, all of these questions, normally it would go through if you're not a super admin like me. And all of these questions are going to come into this Q&A tiles section. And if an employee has a question, they're going to pop up here, and then you can either come in and simply click this email. And so it will populate your email inbox with the question, the employee's contact information, and you can answer it, or they can provide a phone number and you can just pick up the phone and call. You can then mark this as answered or contacted. So then you now have a record of, okay, did you reach out to everybody that asked questions? And so essentially we've built like a really nice, simple help desk in here. And I will note that you don't have to remember to come into the reports tab throughout open enrollment. Every morning, I believe it's at 8 a.m. The system will send whomever the tile is assigned to a email that says, hey, you have 2 questions to go answer on the Q&A tiles, and it will direct you right there.
Yep.
The one other cool thing that I will mention on this is if we see themes of questions that are being asked, like how do I add a dependent or how do I reset my password, we can always update the virtual benefits fair while it's live and get a tile in with answering that question. So anyone else that's going through it can they're going to see that information, and you should get less questions in the long run. So I think that's actually one of the most amazing parts of this feature, is that if you're getting a lot of questions on the same thing, we can make future changes for you really quickly to make sure open enrollment stays easy.
I did see a good question come in, Kate.
Yeah.
About ability for Airbo to be set up for, excuse me, several classes and like different eligibility. So I just wanted to point out that Airbo can be set up to be segmented for specific groups. So for example, Florida, Nevada, maybe you have a union, non-union, you have several different groups with different benefits eligibility. Depending upon your preferred launch method within the virtual benefits fair, we can target tiles so they're shown to specific populations. Super simple to set up.
Yeah. And for that one, we would just need, when you send or when we get your user file in, whether that's like a secure file, like we're automatically receiving, or one that gets manually uploaded, it would just need an indicator of those populations so we know who to tag.
Yep.
And then in some cases, if we don't have that, or you don't have contact information, we can always set up a couple instances of the virtual benefits fair that gets shared out, and we would just provide you with a couple of different flyers. I did see some questions about language, so I just want to very briefly go back to those. So in terms of changing language, so just the Airbo site is translated. We do not, the system does not translate attachments. Those would have to be translated by you and then attached to the tile. So anything that's like a video or attachment is an external resource to Airbo, and so that won't automatically translate, just the tile content will. And then we are using Google Translate, which is like the best translation, tool that's in the, that's available in the world right now. We make sure that the content is like 8th grade reading level and below. So the translation works really well. It's very easy, and it's like an accurate translation. So we just make sure that content's written in an incredibly simple way to make sure that it works there. Trisha, is there anything else on the virtual benefits fair that you want to mention before I just jump into reminders throughout?
Yeah, I think there was one question about the naming convention of the virtual benefits fair.
Oh, yep.
So really quickly, when so say maybe you're getting a virtual benefit fair started, the Airbo team may have the year of 2024 because that's the year that we're in, but you can always tweak the name of your virtual benefits fair, add in the upcoming plan year if you rather it show 2025. You can call it Open Enrollment Fair, our fun, crazy virtual benefits fair. You can name it anything you'd like, and it's super simple to change within the setup tab, which is on like the lower left, or within the campaign.
Just add a little exclamation point.
Yeah, make it fun.
Yeah.
Add some emojis.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, thanks, Trisha. So the other thing I just want to mention that we do is oftentimes we want to do reminders for employees throughout the virtual benefits fair. And so just to show you what this could look like. So typically with Airbo, we'll send out your virtual benefits fair. So the full campaign, let's just say on day 1. of open enrollment. And then once we're halfway through open enrollment, I'm just going to scroll here, we'll send actually a reminder tile to them to say, hey, action required. We're halfway through open enrollment. So like we're sending another nudge to employees, whether that's via email or text, or like maybe a Teams message that goes out with the link to the virtual benefits fair to remind them. And then we'll typically also do additional reminders on like the last day or the day before, depending on what your numbers look like in terms of enrollment. So these don't have to be sent out if you have really good enrollment numbers, but like one of the ways that we're able to get really great participation in open enrollment and get people to actually go and take action throughout the 1 or 2 week period is through these reminders that we do. And so like, you know, Judge Judy, she's here telling us that you have to go and enroll and it ends tomorrow. And so like, we'll work with you to do reminders. And then also, again, do like additional information about what happens if you don't take action. And so that's one of the pieces that we do specifically for the virtual benefits fair, or if you're driving action, where we're really making sure to get many touch points out. And we have like kind of a full communication plan based on your benefits changes, your open enrollment timeline, and like goals and priorities. So all of that is included in our virtual benefits fair. Perfect. Let me just do a quick check on questions before I get through. Yes, so quickly, Karen, so since attachments can't be translated, you can absolutely attach many to the tiles. So a lot of groups will do an English version and a Spanish version. But one of the things that we do try to, like, you know, hopefully you don't have to do as many translated attachments, just because like the tiles are translated. So we're getting that information to employees already in a really easy way. And then Tamara asked, if my virtual benefits fair is live and I want to add tiles, but don't want a new tile at the end, can I move the placement? Yeah, I'll show you our drag and drop really quickly. So everyone's getting to see like how to edit a campaign very briefly. And so if I want to, you know, change my order, so maybe I want to put who can participate first. Uh-oh, my Zoom is in the way. There we go. It will just move the tile and drag and drop. So very, very simple to change the order if something's live.
I think there was one on whitelisting from Robert, and that one, yes, there is a whitelisting for the Airbo domains, just to make sure nothing gets blocked by your server or your spam. You know, nowadays, we know there's a lot of weird things going on. So we do have a whitelisting document that is all lined out of what needs to be completed prior to that. And we just send that over to you to forward on to your IT department. And if they come back with any questions, you can always send over our contacts so that we can work with them to get whitelisted.
Yeah. And then Angel just asked, if a change is made during an active OE, will employees be notified? We won't, like when I dragged and dropped a tile and moved it, we're not going to send anything out to employees to notify them about that. But if you want to send out the, like a changed tile or something that has like been changed that we need everyone to see, we would recommend sending a notification out. But typically if you're going in and changing a word or an image or moving the order, nothing is going to be sent out to an employee.
And setting up the content and the time frame, I believe that's our next slide. So I can
so we're gonna move on over and I'll give it to you, Trisha.
Awesome. So what to expect when you want to move forward with the virtual benefits fair? If would be a new customer coming on board, how the process works is you would set up a 30-minute call with myself and Megan on my team. And we would just walk through your goals, priorities, help you get set up, talk through your preferences and those steps. And then from there, we collect your benefits guide, documents, anything that you'd like included within your virtual fair. Turnaround time, we like to say anywhere from 3 to 5 days, but we can be pretty flexible depending on when your desired launch date is. And then from there, we just hop on a brief training call just to get any admins familiar with the platform. So all in all, we've seen groups launch within a week, depending on their time frame, within a few days. Others, you know, we like to recommend maybe 2 to 3 weeks, just in case if you need a little bit more time to review. But how the process essentially works is as simple as like 1, 2, 3. We create the content. We get you all like 90 to 95% of the way there. Anyone on the admin team would just go into review, add any final touches, add any other remaining documents, change any images if you want to change up the look of the event, and then share it with your employees with either the email, text message, which just requires a user upload. And all we need from that are just full names, email address, and then phone number. Those are just the 3 requirements. We like to also say to include employee ID. It's a good indicator to have that included. And then if you have segments to target tiles, that would just be included as well. And then if you want to just send out a link QR code, there's that option as well.
Should be pretty quick and easy. We try to make it as easy as possible for you, since we know you're usually wearing many hats in the HR and benefits space.
Yep. Easier the better.
So a couple other, just because we're getting close on time, so I want to make sure that we just get through a few other slides and then get the HCRI number to you all. So I just want to mention here that Airbo is often covered, or excuse me, our virtual benefits fairs are often covered through wellness funds, communication dollars, or tech credits. We had a few questions come through about this prior to this webinar. And so as you're going through your benefits renewal, this is really a good time to try and get some of that funding through your different carriers or vendors. And so something we can always help with, and you can always reach out to us and we'd be happy to help. And then I want to just give you a quick, exciting opportunity. So if you do not use Airbo right now, we do offer one of our campaigns for free, which is our new hire benefits onboarding campaign. And so this is very similar to the virtual benefits fair, but the only kind of difference is that it's used for new hires. So it's how you would educate your new hires about their benefits and get them to enroll. And so if you're a current employee, you already have access to this, just reach out to our customer success team or your customer success rep, and we can get this set up for you. If you're considering Airbo or interested in Airbo and want to give it a try before OE, now is the perfect time to get started using it for your new hires. And all you do is sign up using the link that we just put in the chat. And then really similar to what Trisha said, we'll reach out to get your benefit guide. We will set up your campaign for you. And then we'll set up like a 45 or so minute call to walk you through implementation, how to get it started. And I think, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Trisha.
I was just going to say, sorry. I was going to say the best part is if you start, or if you have a new hire benefits onboarding board and you want to move over to the virtual benefits fair, it's so simple to get that started because we basically have the fair going. We just make a few minor tweaks to convert the wording from new hire enrollment to open enrollment.
Yeah. And then on the other side, on the flip side, when your new benefits come into play, you've also got your new hire version pretty much ready to go for your next plan year.
Exactly. Yeah. They play off of each other.
Yeah, exactly. So please feel free to sign up, reach out to us, and we can get things going for you on that front. And then lastly, we are going to be sending a survey your way. So we always want to know what we can do to make these webinars better for you, like what would be helpful for you, walking away from this. So if you have any feedback, please share. We will use it for our next webinar.
I love that little polar bear.
I know. And I really quickly, so I know most people are probably about to jump off, but Caleb, I wanted to answer your question. That if we see people complete half or a portion, we can always do a nudge to those people. So one of the things that we see on Airbo data, which I think is really cool, is you can see drop-off points for tiles. And you can really see what's happening with the content. And so if we ever need to do something like that and add like additional communication in or nudge, we can always do that. So it's pretty common for us to do. And then Christopher Bateman asked, what security measures are in place for keeping text communication and data private and secured? So all data on Airbo is encrypted at rest. So we have, a number of security measures in place. Since we're just sending outgoing text, it's really just like you would be sending an email to employees. And so they're not typically, unless you're using one of our other tools that allow employees to text questions in, they're not going to be responding in that way. And then, is there a proper way to ask about language preference without seeming discriminatory? This is why we've actually set it up to be employees opting in themselves. And so you don't have to ask about it because we allow them to change it, at their discretion. Perfect. I think for the most part, we got everyone's questions. Does anybody have any other questions? Oh, thank you, Lauren. We're so excited for yours too.
Hi, Lauren.
I think we just got to do the raffle winner.
Oh, shoot. I missed the slide. Evelyn,
Right?
all you. Oh my goodness.
It's at the end.
See, this is why you gotta keep me honest.
I was running it in the background. So this is for
Okay.
a $50 gift card. And the winner this time is Terry Stang. So I don't know if they're still on here, but I'll be sending out an email with your gift card.
Awesome. Congrats, Terry. Perfect. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, all.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks, Evelyn.
Bye.
Talk to you later. Bye.